Good morning. My name is Jesse Severe. I work for the Wyoming State Library, and I want to thank you for attending this little webinar about our social media distribution project that we are starting here. So anyway, I guess let's get into it. I'm the multimedia and marketing specialist here. So all right. Topics for today. We're going to go over the goals of the overall project, how social media distribution can differ from a traditional press kit, why we want to approach this and why we want to take on something like this versus purely traditional, and what it will look like, and then some collaboration things that I think could be kind of neat, and then the next steps that you can expect. So to start with goals, the overall goal of the project is to provide easy to distribute content. We want to basically provide a pile of news items that are formatted for social media, in particularly versus just the long format. The reason that we want to provide them in this way is so that the local libraries can become the point of contact. They can be the ones that actually take this information and provide it to their patrons versus us as the Wyoming State Library providing it for them. Because we've discussed a lot, and a lot that I've read says that your patrons typically see the local library as their point of contact. A lot of our patrons in Wyoming don't even realize that there is a state library. So it's important that we keep the focus as local as possible. And we want the messages to be clear, consistent, and concise. Focused and consistent is important, so that way they know that they can trust the information they're getting. And we want to provide the content on a dependable schedule. That way, not only the libraries that are going to distribute this content can expect it at certain times, but also we want our patrons or the end user to say, it's been a few days. I expect them to have something out there. So you're consistent, and then they begin to see you as a authority in the field. So traditional media versus social media. How does this compare? How is this different? This is your typical traditional press release. I'm sure everybody is familiar with this. I would expect that a lot of the people in this webinar are PR people or in charge of at least distributing some of the information through your library. So this is what you typically see. This is what is often distributed to the local newspaper or radio station, things like that. It's a bunch of sound bites that you can formulate yourself, but it's a lot more long format. It's been around for a long time, so there's advantages to it. It's familiar. It's been around. People are used to seeing it. Your mediums, traditional mediums, this is what they typically work with. It's thorough. You add as much information in there as possible, and then they can pick and choose what they want to distribute. And you have direct contact with the press, which means that you get to know your people at your local news venues. But there are disadvantages as well. You have a limited audience. If you don't receive the local newspaper and you submit your press release to the newspaper, those people that don't get it, they're not going to get a chance to see it. And it's slow. So let's say that I present a press release on Tuesday in the afternoon. It has to go out. Somebody has to review it, and they then have to send it to press if they want to. So you're looking at a lag time through all that. And then probably what I feel most importantly, it involves a gatekeeper. You have to basically present your content to somebody, and they decide if it's relevant to publish or not. So in a lot of ways, you can do a lot of work to create a really polished press release, and it may or may not even get published. So why should we consider social media distribution? In contrast to the traditional, we talked about audience with the amount of people that receive a newspaper, for instance. This stat here is of no shock to anybody, I'm sure, but Facebook users just in the U.S., I pulled this from end of year 2012, And as you can see, Facebook users are over half of the entire United States population. I think it's around 166 million versus a total pop of 313. And then if you take the amount of internet users in comparison to Facebook users, it's well above 60%. So 60% of internet users are also Facebook users. So this is a very popular medium. Obviously, we've been hearing that for a long time. So that's one reason that social media makes sense. Another is speed. So users can be reached at any time. If any of you have a phone, a smartphone, and you have Facebook on it, I would guess that you probably check it several times a day. Versus your local newspaper, you receive it in the mornings, and that's your only interaction with it typically. Radio is much the same. Yeah, there's bits that go out throughout the day, but you really have to be in the right place at the right time. Versus social media is all the time. Compositions updates can be very, very fast. You can basically take a piece of content, sit down, and type it out, or on your phone, and have it to your users in a matter of seconds. It's consumed quickly. Your end user doesn't have to sit down, open up the newspaper, read a whole article. They can pull up Facebook or jump on Facebook on the computer, and they can see that update just in a few seconds of scrolling, so you can reach them very quickly that way as well. And sharing is often one click, and this helps expand the reach. So instead of somebody saying, oh, I read this article, let me get it for you, on social media they can just simply hit one button that says share, and all of a sudden that message is broadcasted out to their entire network. So multifaceted, this quote is actually one of my favorites from marketing when I was in school. And it talks about, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but the more that you see something, eventually you come around to it. And this is one way that we can use social media to actually increase our number of impressions with our users. So instead of them having to see something 15 times on Facebook for it to be relevant, they can see it 5 times on Facebook, maybe once on Twitter, once on YouTube. And I'm not saying here to use the same exact message, but to use the same overall content tailored to each of these channels, you can increase the number of impressions for your user really, really rapidly. So relevancy. You can interact with your patron where they spend their time. You're not asking them to come to your place to consume what you do. You're bringing what you offer to them where they are. In the social media, it could be Twitter, it could be Facebook. Pinterest is really popular right now. And you stand the chance to become an authority in their community. So if you're offering compelling content that is accurate and interesting, then they may start to look to you for their quality information, and as long as you provide that, they're more willing to share that. It encourages conversations through social media. There's a huge advantage where you can actually discuss things that come up with your users and say, what do you think of this? Let us know, and it really becomes a two-way conversation versus just a push of information. And you have a direct feedback loop, so that's kind of what I just discussed there as well. You can hear from them if they're not liking a certain type of update you're doing. They can let you know. Again, you can ask. Again, an advantage is timeliness. So this is a really good thing for local events. If you want to promote things, you can let them know ahead of time what's coming up. You can almost build a buzz with it by saying this is what we're working on, and give them sneak peeks of things, and say, then start adding information about when it's going to occur. You can ask them to engage, and this is where that share thing comes in. You can ask them to basically spread the word to their friends. I've seen a lot of people use contests in this way. They can basically offer prizes for the most sharing, or the correct answer to trivia regarding the event, things like that. So And then also you can engage, which is more of what we've talked about, where you have an opportunity to discuss directly with your users. And then when it's over, you can ask for feedback, which is helpful to evaluate the not only the how your event performed, but also how your social media interactions were as well. And you can use this as an opportunity to get feedback from the community to discuss what they may want to see in the future. So, those are the advantages basically, and now we can talk about what the Wyoming State Library's view of this, what our distribution plan is ultimately going to look like. So the types of content that we want to put out there, National Library news, things that you may have been able to pick up on your own, but the thing that we want to do is be able to provide it in a format that fits your social media channels. Wyoming specific news, this is one that I pulled from a few weeks ago from our Facebook feed. Things that actually are relevant to Wyoming in a statewide context. So if you are a Wyoming library and maybe your branch doesn't have enough going on, but you can talk about things that are going on throughout the state. We actually produce quite a bit of content here at the state library. Some of the things are very specific to patrons and are very beneficial for them, and they may not be finding them through their channels, but you can promote some of these things that you can think that are relevant for them. One of the things that we've had a lot of success with actually is some lighter stuff, some meme content and comics and things. So those have gone over well, and for you to be able to push those through your library, sometimes you may find increased reach to your audience through those. Interactive material. So to ask questions of your audience, again, that engagement in the two-way conversations. Wild content, so if we, through our wild catalog through here, if there's maintenance, if it's down, things like that, those are things that you could broadcast to your patrons and keep them in the loop of what's going on. And our LDO office here does a lot of things, so those are just a few of the options of what you may see through our distribution network here. So to give you an idea of what the overall content will look like, a few of the core things that I wanted to focus on was to make sure that each is appropriate. The traditional long-form press release is still very important, and we still plan on doing those, but we also want to make sure that we have content that's more concise. So as you know, Twitter is 140 characters. Facebook doesn't necessarily have a limit, but it definitely truncates at a certain point. And so if we can take the overall message and condense it down for those different mediums, then it makes more sense. Instead of having a 200-word piece and then trying to post that on Facebook, nobody's going to read that necessarily because it's a little bit more of a faster consumable. People don't read the same way on Facebook as they do in other formats. So instead of linking only to that content, we're going to have shorter blurbs and then have them link back to the full content if the users want to see that. So this was an article that we had up on our Facebook page, and as you can see, there's a link to the full thing, but we also wrote in our own. And again, you can mix and match these. It doesn't have to be all Twitter, all Facebook, all long format. The goal is to have a mix of all of them to be able to reach different users, because you may have users that use Facebook primarily, and you may have users that use Twitter primarily, and they can see the same content over time, just presented in different ways. Another thing will be images. So this is a sample sidebar that we have, and as our campaigns grow, we want to have content that perhaps you can embed on your website, over a limited period of time. These are some features that we offer through the state library that I know that your libraries use that are very, very beneficial to patrons. So over time, we will package these together. There'll be images. There's header images, Pinterest images possibly, I think Instagram, things like that, and then we can overall present these as a cohesive thing. They're also web optimized, so they won't take forever to load. And again, they're totally optional. You don't have to use these, but they're going to be available if you would like to. So customizable is also important. Again, pick and choose. If you don't use Instagram or Pinterest, you definitely don't have to. You can modify them as much as you want. The copy is certainly not set in stone. These are just suggestions. And you can distribute them all at once and do a blitz, or you can trickle it out over time so your network basically feels fuller. And you may also reach those patrons at different times. So some may see it in the morning, some may check in the afternoons. And a lot of this comes with no state library branding. So what we encourage people to do is to basically add your library's logo to make this content appear that it comes directly from you, because it does come from you. It's just that we may have compiled some of it, but ultimately for the end user to understand where this is coming from, it makes sense to be focused on the local library. So this will all be downloadable. We're going to have packages for distribution through WyomingLibraries.org. The older ones we're going to throw in a zip with all of the assets, such as the images and headers and things like that, as well as the long format in Word docs or doc files. And we're going to have all these available, and we will archive them so you can come back and look at past ones. If something is relevant, you can use it again. And we will be doing email notifications upon these releases, so you won't have to continue to check WyomingLibraries.org to see if there's something new. You can if you'd like to, but we're going to have it to where you'll be notified if you sign up for it to receive these as we make them available. And that sign up form is now live actually on Wyoming Libraries, and I'll show you where that is here in a minute. So there's printables as well that go along with this. This is an example of what we did for some rack cards, and these will eventually be themed with the overall campaigns, but they're assets for in-library use. You'll be able to download the PDF and print them yourself. They'll be consistent with the overall online campaign, so your images will be similar, colors will be similar, and they'll be PDFs. All you have to do is download them and send the file to your printer and then cut them. We have some examples of bookmarks. WyomingLibraries.org promotional handouts. We actually have a lot of our older ones up right now. So if you're not familiar with these, go check it out. We have some pretty good stuff that showcase some of our databases and things like that. Another thing that we want to do with this project is a calendar. A live planning calendar is on WyomingLibraries.org/socialpress. It's not filled up with content at this point, but what we're hoping to do is have it broadcast out around 2 months, so you'll be able to see what's coming down the pipe and maybe integrate that with your in-library marketing efforts, so you'll know what is coming. You'll be able to subscribe to that library, and so if you use Google, it's a Google Calendar is what it is. So if you use Google Calendar yourself, you can subscribe to it, and these events will show up in your own calendar. And the one that is embedded on Wyoming Libraries/Social Press is live. It's not a static image, so as we add things or delete things or move things around, you'll always have a live snapshot of what the plan is. And there will be links back to the previous campaigns as well as the archives on the bottom of the page. And then also, this isn't live yet, but we're going to have a form to where you can suggest future topics that we can go over and build campaigns around. Again, flexible branding, wanted to say again that this isn't about promoting the state library, this is about promoting your local library. So focus on local. And again, customizable. So some of the collaborative part, this isn't necessarily going to be public facing, but this is something that I want to discuss with people like you that are in the webinar because you're interested in doing promotion to your patrons. It is the people in the libraries like you that are the community of content creators that we have. So if you have any suggestions, like I said, the form will be up there, but you can also contact me if you have ideas on what this project may be missing or some things that you'd like to see done differently, you're always welcome to contact me. There's the form again. And in the future, if there's enough interest, maybe we could do some forum type thing that I would be happy to run, so we can discuss some of these marketing strategies. And again, this is a work in progress, so none of this is set in stone, but and I do expect it to change to fit what works best for you all. So what's next? We plan on rolling out our first campaigns in January of next year, so that's only a few weeks away. The calendar will be populated with some topics that we're going to try to hit really, really soon. And then the webpage, this is up. I've actually been working on this, so if you have any suggestions on this, be sure to let me know. The media calendar is live. Contact form for input will be up soon. And also feedback. So again, like I just said, this is a work in progress, so I'm looking for feedback on a lot of this, or things that you want to see changed or suggest. Metrics are going to be something that I'm really excited about and interested in. There's things that we can do to basically check the analytics on a large scale to see who viewed these campaigns, what they viewed, and by who I just mean in general communities, not names or IP addresses, things like that. But we can see how many people viewed a campaign, how many people clicked through, how long they were on certain pages or things like that. So these metrics are something that I want to add in the long term, and by using those we can modify this project as it moves along. Some new mediums potentially. I mean, as new social medias will arise, this will definitely change. There's things that could change in the meantime. Something that I've thought about was maybe MailChimp. It's the email distribution network that we use, and if some of the other libraries don't use that at this time, maybe it's something that we could offer email campaigns if that's another way you would like to reach your patrons. And again, I'm always available. If you want to call or send me an email, I'm happy to field that. So I want to thank you for listening to this and for attending the webinar.